In the hush before sunrise, a single figure stirs among the rows of withered grain. His name is Bakenkhons, a rural slave whose life has been carved by the relentless sun and the unyielding hands of his overseers. Today is his final day. Bakenkhons wakes before the first light, his body aching from decades of labor under the scorching Egyptian sun. Each breath tastes of dust and sweat. He rises on hands scarred by calluses, feeling the familiar weight of his shackles, iron bands that have bound him since boyhood. Yet as he stands, a flicker of something he thought long lost sparks within him. Hope. He steps into the cool pre-dawn air. The horizon is painted in muted hues of lavender and gold. In the distance, the great pyramids stand like silent sentinels, monuments to pharaohs who consigned men like him to lives of endless toil. He pauses, letting the moment stretch, every fiber of his being alive with the knowledge that this day changes everything. His first task is simple: fetch water from the well. The bucket is heavy, and every step brings a sting to his raw feet. But today, each drop he draws will carry more than life-giving moisture. It will carry his memories, a final offering to the land that both nourished and enslaved him. Carrying the jar back to the fields, Bakenkhons recalls the faces he's known. His mother, who taught him to read the hieroglyphs carved in temple walls. His father, who died collapsing beneath the weight of a limestone block. The overseer's lash that cracked like thunder against his back. Pain and longing intermingle in his chest. Yet he does not falter. With each footfall, he feels the pulse of the earth beneath him, a reminder that he, too, belongs to something greater than suffering. As the sun breaches the horizon, he meets his first overseer, a burly man named Marenta. The overseer's whip hangs at his side like a vulture's talon. He sneers at Bakenkhons' shackles. "Leave them," he growls, gesturing with a crooked finger. Incredulous, Bakenkhons stands still. Without the iron bands, he would not be a slave. He would be a free man. The overseer's laughter rumbles across the fields. "Not today," he says. "You serve until sunset." And with that, he turns away. Bakenkhons bows his head and moves on. He spends the next hours tending the crops, pulling weeds, turning the soil, guiding the ox-drawn plow across the cracked earth. Each task is a testament to his endurance. As mid-morning heat presses down, he allows himself a moment of quiet reverie. He imagines his escape, slipping to the palm groves under cover night, following the Nile upriver until he finds a land where no master claims him. In that vision, he breathes freely, but reality intrudes harshly. The foreman's whistle pierces the air. Bakenkhons returns to the central courtyard, where rows of slaves stand awaiting orders. A procession of nobles arrives, their linen kilts crisp, their sandals kicking up red dust. They inspect the harvest with practiced disinterest, murmuring among themselves about levies and tributes. A single nod from the highest-ranking noble condemns or spares. Today, Bakenkhons thinks they will spare him, but only until the day's end. He is ordered to carry baskets of freshly cut grain to the storage bins near the granary. The baskets are heavy. The sun climbs relentlessly. Sweat soaks his skin, mixing with tears he refuses to shed. As he sets down the final basket, a priest approaches, carrying an ornate offering tray. On it rests a ceremonial loaf of bread shaped like a stylized sun disk. "For the gods," the priest intones, "and for the laborers who make this land flourish." He hands the loaf to Bakenkhons. "Eat, and know that R.A. watches over you." Hesitant, Bakenkhons accepts. The bread is warm, its aroma of honey and barley strangely comforting. He breaks a piece and tastes sweetness on his tongue, a rare gift. For a moment, he closes his eyes, letting the flavor carry him away from the fields, the overseers, the chains. He recalls his mother's laughter, the glint of fascination in her eyes as she traced the hieroglyphs on temple walls. He remembers his father's grave, marked only by a humble stone by the Nile. Today, he is neither farmer nor slave. He is a man on the cusp of destiny. The sun stands at its zenith when he returns to his final assignment, stone hauling at the pyramid's base. The limestone blocks are immense, their surfaces smooth as polished ivory. He strains against ropes, every muscle screaming, but he moves the block inch by agonizing inch. He thinks of the pharaoh whose name will be immortalized in stone, a man whose glory is built upon the backs of slaves. But Bakenkhons wonders, who will remember him? What legacy does a man like him leave behind? As the afternoon blaze intensifies, fatigue threatens to overwhelm him. His vision blurs, his mind drifts. He recalls the prayer his mother taught him. May my steps be guided by light, and may my spirit find rest. He murmurs the words beneath his breath. A breeze stirs, carrying the scent of date palms from the oasis beyond the dunes. It feels like a promise. With renewed resolve, he grips the rope again and heaves. The block shifts more easily now, as if the gods themselves have granted him strength. As the sun begins its slow descent, the temperature drops just a fraction, but the weight on Bakenkhons' shoulders remains unchanged. He has hours of labor yet to endure before the day, and his servitude reaches its end. Each task now carries an extra sting of urgency, for he knows the evening light will bring the culmination of his fate. He is summoned again to the pyramid's base, this time to assist in the final smooth layer of casing stones. These polished white blocks, intended to reflect the brilliance of Ra himself, gleam in the fading sunlight like shards of fallen star. Bakenkhons approaches the pile, his bones weary from the morning's haul, yet something in the sight stirs him. This is the visible peak of a lifetime's work, the moment when raw blocks become the sacred face of God King on earth. With steady hands, he and a fellow slave named Anen, once a scribe's apprentice, now condemned by debt, lift a stone from the cart. Together, they ease it into place, guiding its weight along wooden rollers laid by the artisans. Anen's breath hitches with every shift, but Bakenkhons feels a tremor in his arms. Yet neither speaks of the pain. Instead, they exchange a glance that says what words cannot. We endure for each other for the promise of this day's end. Halfway through the placement, a crack echoes through the courtyard. One of the casing stones splits, a jagged fracture marring its smooth surface. The overseers halt their inspections, voices rising in alarm. The master architect, a gaunt figure draped in linen, strides forward, eyes blazing. He demands an explanation, his voice cutting through the air like a sharpened reed. But Bakenkhons' heart pounds. If the crack is deemed his fault, he will pay with more than bruises, perhaps with his life. Anen steps forward, shoulders squared despite fatigue. It was the stone's fault, he declares, not ours. A hush falls as the architect circles the damaged block, tapping it with the haft of his cane. The crack runs deeper than the eye first saw. The block had flaws beneath its polished surface. Finally, the architect nods curtly and orders the broken stone removed. But Bakenkhons exhales a breath he didn't know he'd held. Anen squeezes his shoulder, a silent vow of solidarity. They press on until twilight paints the sky in hues of blood and saffron. The final stones are set. But Bakenkhons watches as torches are lit around the pyramid's base, their flames dancing against the newly laid casing. The structure glows like a beacon, guiding the weary souls who have built it. In that moment, Bakenkhons feels a strange blend of pride and sorrow. For in this masterpiece of human ambition, his life has been but a single grain of sand lost in the desert. Suddenly, a trumpet call rings out from the temple courtyard. It is a signal that the pharaoh's inspection is over and that the laborers may leave the site. A cheer rises among the slaves, a rare sound of collective relief. Yet Bakenkhons hesitates. His shackles remain. Freedom is not granted by a trumpet. It is earned by a decree. He watches as nobles and priests disperse, their sandals kicking up dust as they return to city. A royal herald appears, announcing the pharaoh's pardon for a single laborer, chosen at random to be freed at day's end as a symbol of divine mercy. The crowd hushes, but Bakenkhons' breath catches. The overseers step forward, blindfolded to the identities below, and draw a name from a gilded urn. The first name called is not his. The second, not his. The third, his. A stunned silence follows. Anen's hand finds Bakenkhons' forearm. The herald calls him by name. Bakenkhon, son of Neferhotep, you are free. The words hang in the air, weightless yet more powerful than any lash. Tears sting his eyes as he stumbles forward, overseers slipping the shackles from his wrists. The iron clatters to the stone floor, and he kneels to gather them, as if to hold on to proof that he was once bound. Rising, He turns to face the gathering crowd of slaves and artisans. Their cheers rise in a chorus of hope and envy, a song of liberation echoing across the desert plain. Bakenkhons looks up at the pyramid's apex, where the last rays of sun touch the golden capstone. He breathes deeply, tasting freedom for the first time. But the day is not yet over. The pharaoh's decree comes with charge. The freed laborer must undertake a pilgrimage to the distant temple of Karnak at dawn, to give thanks to Monius Ra and to pledge his loyalty to the realm. But Bakenkhons accepts without hesitation. His first true task as a free man is to honor the gods who have guided him to this moment. Night falls completely. The slaves are sent home to their quarters, simple huts outside the worksite walls. But Bakenkhons retrieves his few possessions: a chipped clay pot, a faded cloth, a talisman of the ant carved by his mother. He steps into the darkness, the torchlight flickering behind him like the last embers of a dying fire. He knows that tomorrow he will leave these fields forever, but tonight he walks a familiar path one final time, bidding farewell to the land that both nourished and enslaved him. He pauses at the edge of the farmland, where the Nile's distant murmur reaches his ears. The river's silver ribbon glistens on the full moon, a guide for his journey ahead. But Bakenkhons closes his eyes and presses a talisman to his heart. "May Ra's light guide me," he whispers. With that, he steps forward into the night, leaving behind not just shackles, but a life defined by them. Night's cool embrace offers little respite from the weight of what has transpired. But Bakenkhons' sandals kick up small puffs of dust as he follows a narrow path that winds away from the labor camps toward the desert road. Each step carries echoes of his past life. The rhythmic crack of the overseer's whip, the murmur of the river at dawn, the whisper of his mother's words. Yet now, under the vast canopy of stars, he is no longer a slave. He is a free man forging his own destiny. The moon rides high, illuminating the barren landscape. Date palms cluster like watchful sentinels around an oasis he passes. Water so clear he can see the pebbles on the bottom. He kneels and cups the water with trembling hands, tasting freedom with each sip. Memories swirl in his mind. His mother teaching him to decipher the ancient glyphs, his father's callous hand guiding his own. Tears blur his vision, but he wipes them away. There is no time for longing. The journey to Karnak begins at dawn. As he resumes his march, distant shapes emerge. Nomadic herders guiding camels laden with pottery. Their lanterns glimmer like fallen stars. One shepherd pauses, noticing the talisman of the ankh at Bakenkhons' neck. "Traveler," he calls in soft tones, "beware the desert's heart at sunrise. Winds rise swiftly, and those unprepared may lose their way." Bakenkhons nods his thanks, offering a quick bow. He watches the caravan disappear, impressed by their ease amid the shifting dunes. Hours pass in silence, broken only by the wind's sigh. When the sky first hints of pale purple, he reaches a crossroads marked by a crumbling statue of Sobuk, the crocodile god. The statue's scales are eroded by centuries of sandstorms, yet its fierce jaws still guard the memory of a once prosperous temple. But Bakenkhons brushes sand from his base and offers a silent prayer. "Guide my path, mighty Sobuk." Beyond the statue, the road stretches toward the horizon. The desert awakens with the promise of light. He presses on, muscles stiff from the night march. His mind drifts to the pilgrimage ahead. At Karnak, he will join throngs of devotees, each bearing offerings. He imagines the temple's towering pylons, its columns carved with thousands of names, kings and commoners alike, giving thanks to Monius Ra. For the first time, he will stand among equals before the gods. The sun breaches eastern dunes as he climbs a gentle rise. Below lies a small settlement. Mud brick huts clustered around a communal well. Children laugh as they chase a small goat. Women draw water and gossip in cheerful tones. But Bakenkhons pauses at the settlement's edge, uncertainty gnawing at him. He has no coin, no trade goods, nothing to offer the villagers. Yet their warmth reminds him of home. A young woman greets him. She carries a clay jug and wears a simple linen dress. "You look weary, stranger," she says in kindly voice. "Rest here before you continue." She gestures to a shaded bench. He accepts, sinking gratefully onto the cool stone. The villagers gather to share dates, flatbread, and goat's milk. No questions asked, only hospitality. Bakenkhons recalls his mother's stories of Egyptian generosity. Today, he tastes that kindness firsthand. After the meal, the elder of the village approaches. His face is lined with years and wisdom. He places a hand on Bakenkhons' shoulder. "You travel far," he observes. "May Amonisare's light guide you." From a satchel, the elder removes a small packet of frankincense. "For your offering at Karnak," he explains. Bakenkhons bows deeply, speechless. The elder smiles and returns to the gathering. Rejuvenated, Bakenkhons resumes his pilgrimage. The road narrows, flanked by low hills. He crosses a dry wadi, a riverbed that only flows in rare storms, its stones worn smooth. Here, he pauses, pulling the Ankh talisman from his tunic. He closes his eyes, feeling the weight of the journey so far. The fields of Giza, the opulence of pyramids casing stones, the clatter of shackles on hard ground, and the moment they were removed. He presses the talisman to his lips. "Thank you, Mother," he whispers. The hills give way to open plains. In the distance, he spies a column of smoke, perhaps from a cooking fire or a falconer's signal. Hope wells in his chest. He quickens his pace. As he draws nearer, he sees 3 men on horseback, cloaked against the desert's chill. Their horses are lean and swift. One dismounts, greeting Bakenkhons with cautious eyes. "What brings you this way, freed man?" the rider asks. Suspicion laces his tone, but there is no malice, only concern for strangers in a harsh land. Bakenkhons explains his pilgrimage, showing the frankincense and the talisman. The rider nods, satisfied. "Karnak lies another day's ride to the northeast," he says. "If you wish, you may join us. We travel with the morning breeze." Gratitude floods Bakenkhons. He mounts a spare mule provided by the rider and settles into the saddle. The journey quickens. Horses clip-clop along the ancient road, dust rising in golden plumes. The sky arches overhead, a brilliant dome of blue. Conversation drifts between the travelers. Tales of caravan raids, of nomadic tribes, of desert storms that bury entire villages. Bakenkhons listens, absorbing wisdom that will guide him beyond today's crossing. As the sun dips toward the western horizon, they crest a final rise, and there it stands. Karnak Temple, its pylons massive against the sky, columns like a forest of stone reaching heavenward. Torches already burn along the causeway of sphinxes, leading to the main gate. The air hums with the murmur of thousands gathered for the night vigil. Bakenkhons' heart hammers. At this moment, he is no longer just a freed laborer. He is a pilgrim about to step into the hallowed heart of Egypt's spiritual power. The column avenue of sphinxes stretches before Bakenkhons like the spine of a great serpent, each carved beast bearing the weight of centuries and the silent prayers of countless worshippers. Torches flicker like captive stars, casting long, wavering shadows across the sandy causeway. At the head of the procession, priests in linen kilts chant hymns to Amonisare's, their voices rising in a low, hypnotic drone that seems to make the very stones tremble. Heart pounding, Bakenkhons steps from his mule and joins the throng of pilgrims flowing toward the first pylon. The gate towers above him, 2 massive buttresses decorated with reliefs of the pharaoh making offerings. A carved inscription proclaims, "He who frees the bound and uplifts the lowly gains the favor of the gods." He remembers his own liberation at Giza, the cruel iron falling from his wrists, and feels those words reverberate through every fiber of his being. Inside the courtyard, the sea of devotees parts to reveal a raised dais draped in white linen. On it stands a high priest, his headdress glinting with gold in the torchlight. He extends a jeweled scepter toward Bakenkhons, beckoning him forward. 2 acolytes bring forth a polished alabaster basin filled with Nile water, its surface smooth as glass. A third holds a small bowl of consecrated oils mixing myrrh and lotus. "Kneel, son of Neferhotep," the high priest intones. Bakenkhons obeys, the coarse stone cool beneath his knees. The priest pours water over his hands and shoulders, the liquid running in clear rivulets and carrying away the dust of his journey. "By this cleansing, you shed your former bonds," the priest declares. "By this oil your spirit is anointed." He anoints Bakenkhons' brow, chest, and palms, each touch burning with warmth and promise. Rising, Bakenkhons feels weightless. The chants swell. Ammonius R.A., Great Hidden One, grant strength to your servant. Ammonius R.A., Lord of Thrones, illuminate his path. Around him, pilgrims weep, some in gratitude, others in awe. He bows his head and offers a frankincense the village elder gifted him. The smoke curls upward, sweet and resinous, mingling with the scent of burning papyrus and sandalwood. Emerging into the hypostyle hall, Bakenkhons is dwarfed by rows of towering columns, each carved with hieroglyphs and crowned with lotus blossoms. Flickering torches reveal scenes of gods battling chaos, of kings defeating enemies, of stars and sun disks wheeling across the sky. He runs his fingers over a column shaft, feeling the cool grooves beneath his calloused tips. In that moment, he understands that every name inscribed before him is a testament to human devotion, and that now his own life will be recorded in stories told long after his bones return to dust. He wanders deeper into the sacred space until he reaches the chamber of offerings. Here, golden tables groan under weights of bread, fruit, and vessels of wine. A silver sistrum lies at the foot of a statue of Ammonius R.A., and a priest nearby invites him to play. Hesitant at first, Bakenkhons lifts the instrument, its rattling discs catching the torchlight. A single shake sends a crystalline trill echoing between the columns, and the priest pauses mid-incantation to smile at him. He laughs softly, thrilled by the sound, and returns the sistrum. Beyond the offering chamber, a narrow vestibule leads to the sanctuary, where the bark of Ammonius R.A. rests atop a dais. The sacred boat is carved from cedar and overlaid with gold leaf. Its prow bears a head of ram, and its canopy is supported by columns shaped like papyrus stalks. Approaching, Bakenkhons feels an almost tangible hum of power, an energy that seems to pulse with each footstep. A final ritual unfolds. The high priest recites the liturgy of the Hidden One, beseeching Ammonius R.A. to grant Bakenkhons a vision of his destiny. As the words fill the chamber, torches flare suddenly, and the air grows thick with incense. Bakenkhons closes his eyes, feeling a warm flood through him. In his mind's eye, he sees himself standing before a new set of fields, not of grain, but of marble and stone, leading a cohort of freedmen to build monuments of their own. He sees children learning hieroglyphs, women weaving tapestries, artists painting murals that celebrate life born from suffering. When he opens his eyes, the priests are silent, their faces serene. The high priest lays a hand on his shoulder. "Go in peace," he says. "Your service has been honored." A chorus of voices responds. "May Ammonius R.A. guide your path." Carrying the weight of that blessing, Bakenkhons exits the sanctuary into the night air. Outside, the full moon shines ever brighter, illuminating the temple pylons and casting the courtyard in silver. He pauses at the threshold, breathing deeply. The distant roar of the Nile reaches him, a reminder that life flows ever onward. Ahead of him lies the final stretch of his pilgrimage, a night's march back to the fields of Giza, where he must report to the pharaoh scribe to have his freedom officially recorded and his new life begun. He looks once more at the temple gates, then turns westward. Each step echoes beneath the Sphinx's silent gaze, carrying him not into bondage, but into a future he will shape with his own hands. Dawn breaks over the horizon as Bakenkhons retraces his steps along the desert road back toward Giza. The air is cool and crisp, carrying wisps of incense from the Temple of Karnak, now a glowing memory behind him. His legs are heavy with the weight of last night's rituals, but his heart is buoyed by purpose. Today, he will have his freedom officially recorded, and with it, the chance to build a new life. The path leads him past the scattered dwellings of laborers who still slumber in the cool shadows of rock outcroppings. Here and there, small altars stand where slaves once offered prayers for strength. Bakenkhons pauses at each, placing a palm on sun-baked stone and whispering a silent thanks. In his chest, he feels the pulse of generations. Ancestors who toiled along the Nile, mothers and fathers who dreamed of a better dawn. By mid-morning, he enters the outskirts of Giza, where the pyramid's massive silhouette dominates the skyline. The workers' quarters sprawl in neat rows of mud brick huts. Slaves stream toward the courtyard, each bearing tools and baskets. They glance at him curiously, his freed status marked by the absence of shackles and by the linen sash across his shoulders. Some offer nods of respect, Others look away, their eyes flickering with envy or relief. Bakenkhons makes his way to the pharaoh scribe Marinath, whose office is a low stone chamber built into the quarry's edge. Inside, scrolls rest on a stone slab, and the flicker of an oil lamp illuminates rows of reed brushes in a pottery jar. Marinath, a slender man with keen eyes, looks up from his writing. "Bakenkhons, son of Neferhotep," he says, voice gentle but firm. "You come to claim your freedom." Bakenkhons nods and kneels. The scribe dips a brush in ink made from lamp soot and water. With steady strokes, he inscribes Bakenkhons' details onto papyrus. Name, parentage, age, the date of emancipation, and the pharaoh's decree witnessed by the high priest. Each glyph is a declaration of a new identity, no longer merely slave, but free citizen. When the scribe finishes, he holds the scroll out for Bakenkhons to touch. The papyrus feels rough beneath his fingertips. "Keep this," Marinath says. "It is your proof before any authority." Bakenkhons bows deeply. He feels tears prick his eyes, not of sorrow, but of gratitude and awe at the power of words to reshape destiny. Stepping outside, scroll in hand, Bakenkhons breathes the hot desert air. The sun stands high, gilding the pyramid and casting its shadow over the courtyard. He looks at the workers around him, some still shackled, others carrying burdens. In that moment, he makes a silent vow. With his freedom, he will return to this place not as a laborer, but as someone who uplifts others, who uses his knowledge to ease the suffering of those still bound. He moves to a small wooden stall near the workers' gate, where artisans sell pottery and simple goods. There, he purchases a plain clay tablet and stylus. Sitting on a low bench, he sketches a hieroglyph for life and freedom, copying from papyrus. It is a private ritual, an anchoring of his new name in his own hand. The tablet will go to his mother's grave one day, a marker of the journey from captivity to self-determination. As afternoon heat builds, Bakenkhons makes his way to the riverbank, where merchants load and unload boats under towering date palms. He boards a small skiff bound for Memphis. The boat glides through sun-dappled waters, the breeze lifting his tunic and cooling his skin. He watches as fishermen cast nets and river traders haggle over pottery jars and bundles of papyrus reeds. He feels the thrumming heartbeat of commerce and connection, freedom and motion. At Memphis's docks, he disembarks and finds a modest guest house. The proprietor, a kindly woman named Nofret, welcomes him and offers a simple meal: lentils stewed with garlic and cumin, flatbread still warm, and figs picked at first light. Bakenkhons eats gratefully, savoring each bite. Over the table, Nofret asks about his journey. He tells her the pyramids, the temple rituals, the scribe's scroll. She listens with wide eyes, brushing stray sand from her apron. Before he leaves, she presses a small linen pouch into his hand. "Salt," she says, "to preserve your memories." Leaving Memphis, Bakenkhons follows the Nile's western bank southward. Each night, he camps beneath the stars, wrapping himself in his mother's faded cloth and holding the papyrus scroll like a talisman. He dreams of fields where freed men to the soil as partners, of schools where children learn without fear, of artisans who carve stone not under whip but by choice. On the seventh day, he returns to his childhood village, a cluster of huts near a bend in the river. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Women pound grain. Children chase young goats. At the center stands a small family plot where his parents lie beneath simple stone markers. Heart pounding, he kneels before his mother's grave and places the clay tablet beside the stone. He traces the carved glyphs: life, freedom, promise. He whispers, "Mother, I've kept my vow." As he stands, villagers gather around, recognizing him at last. There are greetings and questions, tears and laughter. He shares his story: the pyramid's labor, the pharaoh's mercy, the pilgrimage, the scroll. They listen, enraptured. Among them, his childhood friend Iset appears, her eyes bright. She places a hand on his arm and smiles. "Your journey gives us hope," she says. The sun sets in a blaze of crimson and violet. Bakenkhons watches as the first stars appear. In this moment, free, honored, and embraced by his people, he knows his past stretches far beyond the fields of Giza. His destiny is not bound by chains or decrees, but shaped by the choices he makes and the lives he touches. The morning sun rises over the fertile oxbow of the Nile, illuminating the village that had become Bakenkhons' new home. Word of his return and miraculous freedom has spread beyond the riverbanks. Neighbors and travelers pause to greet him, seeking guidance, encouragement, and stories of hope. Yet he knows that change will only come through action, not words alone. At the village square, Bakenkhons convenes a small gathering beneath the shade of a great sycamore figure. Around him stand freed men and women, some former laborers from Giza, others descended of craftsmen or farmers tied by debt. Their faces are eager, reflecting the mix of determination and apprehension that accompanies all new beginnings. Gently, he lays out clay tablets and reed pens on a low wooden table. Today, we begin our school of glyphs and counting, he announces. We will learn together, share knowledge, and build a future. A hush falls as the first reed stylus is passed. He guides her fingers to trace simple hieroglyphs: water ripple, sun disk, ankh. Symbols that once marked them as slaves are now tools of empowerment. Children peek curiously from doorways. Elders nod in approval. The school grows each morning as more villagers arrive, eager to learn to read the scrolls that record their own destinies rather than the commands of overseers. By midday, the square hums with activity. Women gather in a circle to learn weaving patterns from a freed artisan who once worked in the palace workshops. She teaches them to spin thread from reeds and dye fabrics with crushed ochre and indigo. Soon, they will produce textiles to trade in Memphis and Thebes, weaving both beauty and livelihood into every bolt of cloth. Meanwhile, Bakenkhons organizes teams to repair the small irrigation canals that feed the rice paddies beyond the village. Former slaves who labored under the whip now work side by side, shoveling silt, reinforcing embankments with sun-dried bricks, and testing water flow with carved wooden gauges. Each repaired sluice carries a sense of collective pride. This water nourishes their crops, their animals, and their hope. On the third day, a messenger from Giza arrives bearing a letter sealed with the pharaoh symbol. The village gathers as Bakenkhons breaks the seal and reads aloud. The pharaoh has heard of Freedmen's initiatives and invites him to consult on a new project at the Pyramid Complex, a communal granary where all workers, free and slave, might deposit a share of harvest for lean times. The letter offers resources: stone, timber, and skilled stonemasons to help build the structure. Gasps of excitement ripple through the crowd. That afternoon, Bakenkhons departs for Giza with a small delegation. The village elder, the former palace weaver, and 2 canal engineers. They travel by skiff down the Nile, the river's pulse echoing their ambitions. As they near the pyramids, the massive structures rise against the sky, reminders of the toil that brought them into being, but also the potential to reshape those very monuments into symbols of unity. They meet with the master architect at the base of the Sphinx's causeway. With calm authority, Bakenkhons presents a pharaoh's letter and outlines a plan: a communal granary with space for workers to store grain, oil, and dried fish. In return, during harvest months, freed laborers will contribute a small portion of their yield, creating a communal reserve for droughts, floods, or conflict. The architect, impressed by the clarity of the proposal and the strength of the delegation, agrees to oversee construction. Work begins immediately. Stonecutters HEW limestone blocks. Carvers inscribe reliefs depicting farmers and artisans united. Canal engineers reroute water to fill a small basin next to granary, ensuring humidity control for stored grain. The palace weaver designs banners bearing the village's emblem, an ankh intertwined with a sheaf of barley, which flutter from wooden posts at the granary's corners. Back in the village, Bakenkhons sends progress reports via couriers. Villagers celebrate with feasts, singing songs of liberation and planting new groves of date palms along the canal banks. The school flourishes. By week's end, more than 50 students can read simple messages and record their own names. A sense of possibility pulses through every home. On the day the granary's threshold stones are set in place, Bakenkhons leads a ceremony at dawn. Freed laborers and appointed scribes carve the opening inscription. Here stands a house of plenty, built by hands once bound, now working free. May its store never empty, and may its spirit nourish all who endure. Torches blaze along the new structure as the rising sun glints off polished limestone. Returning home that evening, Bakenkhons pauses on a small bridge spanning the canal. He watches water ripple beneath, carrying boats laden with grain toward the distant granary. He feels the Ankh talisman against his chest and recalls the prayer his mother taught him. "May my steps be guided by light," he murmurs, "and may my spirit find rest." He looks toward the horizon, where the silhouettes of distant villages cluster along the Nile. Beyond them, the desert dunes shimmer. His journey has not ended. It has only begun. Freed from chains, he now carries the responsibility of freedom itself. To lift others, to build, to teach, and to honor the land and the gods who guided him. Before dawn breaks on the 8th day, Bakenkhons awakens in his modest home. The clay walls still cool from the night air through the narrow window slit. He watches lanterns bob along the canal path, marking the start of a day's labor for fishers and farmers. He rises quietly, mindful of his neighbor's rest, and steps into the courtyard to stretch his limbs. The scent of baked barley mingles with the faint perfume of lotus petals from a small altar. Today brings news from Thebes. Pilgrims who visited Karnak speak of a growing movement among freedmen. Villages banding together petition the pharaoh for expanded schooling and communal projects. Bakenkhons feels both pride and urgency. His work in this riverbend settlement has inspired others, but has also revealed how much remains to be done. He dons his linen sash and wraps his mother's talisman beneath his tunic, a quiet reminder of the life he carries forward. He makes his way to the village square, where the newly established school is already filling with eager faces. Children practice glyphs on clay tablets, and elders debate the merits of using papyrus versus clay. Bakenkhons greets each group. He reviews the students' progress, correcting the stroke of a rare hieroglyph here, encouraging a timid scribe there. His voice carries easily across the courtyard, calm but insistent. "Knowledge is our shield," he tells them. "With every sign we learn, we shape our own destiny." Mid-morning, a messenger arrives bearing reed scrolls from a neighboring village upriver. They request guidance on setting up their own canal repair teams and share plans for a communal bakery to provide bread during lean seasons. Bakenkhons studies the drawings, a rudimentary water wheel design, sketches of a communal kiln, and nods. "We will send artisans and engineers," he promises. "Our work here will be the blueprint for many." The messenger bows, gratitude shining in his eyes. The afternoon heat intensifies as Bakenkhons visits the granary site at Giza. He travels by skiff, the Nile gliding beneath papyrus fronds. Arriving at the construction grounds, he finds the communal granary walls rising above sturdy stone blocks. Laborers, both free and still enslaved workers, move side by side. Some carve the barley emblem reliefs. Others lay bricks. Canal engineers test the moisture retention. Bakenkhons watches a group of former slaves carefully adjusting a sluice gate. He smiles, seeing cooperation where once there was only coercion. He meets with the master architect and presents the reed scrolls from upriver, along with proposal. Equip each granary in the network with a small schoolhouse attached, so that as communities contribute their harvest, their children can learn to read the very records they produce. The architect strokes his beard thoughtfully. "A bold plan," he says, "but one that pleases the gods of order and justice. I will petition the pharaoh's vizier." Bakenkhons bows, hope rising in his chest. Returning to his village at dusk, he learns that the school's first students have completed a public recitation of the hymn to the Nile, their voices blending in praise of the river that sustains them all. The villagers have gathered on the canal banks, lanterns reflected in the water like fireflies. Bakenkhons joins them, listening to the children chant as their parents watch proudly. When the hymn ends, applause ripples across the crowd. Torchlight illuminates faces etched with joy and wonder. He steps forward to address them. "Today," he begins, "we honor the river that gives us life, and we honor each other. Farmers, fishers, artisans, and scribes, all working together for a future of freedom and learning. Let this song echo beyond our fields into every village and every heart." A chorus of voices rises in agreement, and for a moment the Nile night is filled with unity. Late into the evening, Bakenkhons sits by the canal under a blanket of stars, writing by torchlight. He records the day's events on papyrus, the petition sketches, the architect's commitment, the children's recital. He plans the next steps, send delegations to the 2 closest settlements, draft a petition to the vizier, and assemble skilled teachers to sail upriver. The quill moves swiftly, each glyph anchoring his vision in ink. At last, he closes the scroll and tucks it into a leather satchel. He lifts his gaze to the full moon, its silver arc mirrored in the Nile's gentle current. The wind carries the faint murmur of reeds and the distant croak of frogs. In that stillness, he feels the weight of countless journeys, his own trek from slavery to freedom, the village's transformation, the promise of a network of empowered communities. He rests his hand on the leather satchel, feeling the promise it contains. "May the gods guide this path," he whispers to the night. Then, gathering his robes around him, he rises and walks home, ready to greet the dawn of another day in which freedom's work unfolds. Before dawn's first light, the village stirs once more. Bakenkhons rises to the distant crow of roosters and the soft murmur of the Nile against its banks. Today, he embarks on a journey upriver to deliver the petition scrolls to neighboring settlements. He dresses in his travel cloak, tucks the leather satchel containing the drafts into his belt, and bids farewell to his fellow teachers and engineers gathered at the quay. The skiff glides silently through mist that swirls above the water's surface like ghostly veils. Fishermen begin to cast their nets as Bakenkhon steers toward the opposite bank. On the shore, reeds sway in gentle rhythm. He recalls the first time he saw this sight as a boy, before suffering before chains, when the Nile felt endless and free. Now, as a free man, he feels a deeper bond, his destiny tied to every village that prospers along these fertile banks. By mid-morning, he arrives at the first settlement, a cluster of huts built around a circular canal feeding a maize field. The village head, an elderly man with a white beard, greets him. They sit beneath an acacia tree, while Bakenkhons unrolls the petition scroll. It outlines a plan for joint granaries with attached schoolhouses, a blueprint for community resilience and shared learning. The elder nods thoughtfully, then summons the local scribe. Together, they translate the petition into their dialect and add the village's seal. Before he leaves, the elder places a handful of dried figs in Bakenkhons' hand, a token of thanks and solidarity. The skiff sets off again, passing river barges laden with papyrus reeds and copper ingots. Bakenkhons watches intently, committed to forging alliances, not merely traversing water. Late afternoon, he disembarks at the next settlement, this one larger and more fortified. Soldiers patrol the walls, ensuring security against desert raiders. The governor, a sharp-eyed military man, receives him in a courtyard fresca with painted murals of battle scenes. Skeptical, the governor listens as Bakenkhons explains how education and shared reserves can strengthen both civilian and military resilience. He asks pointed questions. Who will maintain the granaries? What if drought persists beyond reserves? Bakenkhons responds with calm authority, outlining a rotating council of elders and engineers to oversee stores and crop diversification plans taught at the school to mitigate famine risk. Impressed by the clarity and foresight, the governor stamps the petition with a seal. He offers an escort of 2 riders to guide Bakenkhons to the final village before sunset. Mounted on swift maras, they ride across fields of green grain bending in the breeze. The sky burns amber as the sun lowers. They arrive at a riverside hamlet known for its clay artisans. The potters work at wheel and kiln beneath palm fronds. Bakenkhons present a petition, now bearing 3 seals of approval. The head potter, a stout woman with clay-stained hands, inspects the scroll. She strokes her chin thoughtfully, then coaxes her apprentices to form cups bearing the petition's emblem, the ankh entwined with barley. "These will be used in our ceremonies," she says, indicating communal feasts where water and bread symbolize unity. Night falls as Bakenkhons boards the skiff alone, the 3 sealed scrolls tucked safely. Lanterns flicker on the shore, bidding him farewell. He feels the weight of responsibility heavier than any sandstone block he once hauled. Yet the purpose behind it fills him with warmth. The river's current carries him swiftly back toward his home village. Stars glitter overhead, and the constellations guide his path as reliably as the compass of his heart. He pauses at a sandbar, stepping ashore to stretch cramped legs. The moonlight reveals tracks, those of traders, travelers, and perhaps raiders. He stands vigilant for a moment, recalling the governor's warning about security. He considers recruiting night watchmen for granaries once built. Back on the water, he notes the rhythmic sound of oars stroking the Nile surface, a lullaby older than dynasties. He allows himself a rare moment of reflection. From a boy bound in shackles to a man steering change, his journey has been marked by the strength of his spirit and the kindness of strangers. Each village's seal represents not just agreement, but trust placed in a freed slave to carry their hopes forward. By the time he nears his home quay, the dawn horizon gleams with promise. He ties the skiff and carries the sealed scrolls to the schoolhouse, where the village council awaits with fresh bread and honeyed wine. Bakenkhons lays the petitions before them. The teachers and engineers examine the seals, their faces lighting with pride. Children press close, curious about the embossed symbols. He stands before the gathering and speaks. These seals are not mere marks of ink and clay. They are odes that bind us to one another across fields and settlements to build a future founded on knowledge, cooperation, and compassion. Together, we shall realize this vision. A hush falls, then a cheer rises, echoing from hut to hut. That evening, the village celebrates with music and dancing under lanterns strung between date palms. Bakenkhons joins the circle, stepping in time to the drum's beat, his heart light despite the arduous journey. As he looks around the faces, young and old, farmer and artisan, freed and yet to be, he understands that freedom's true power lies not just in breaking chains, but in forging bonds that uplift all. When the revelry wanes and the embers fade, Bakenkhons slips away to the canal's edge. He watches moonlight shimmer on the water, clutching the leather satchel to his chest. May this path endure, he whispers, and may every seal signify hope kept. Dawn's light filters through the date palms as Bakenkhons awakens in his village, the soft glow painting the clay walls with warm hues. Today, he turns his attention to securing the granary's workforce and finalizing plans for the schoolhouses attached to each communal store. The petition scrolls, now triple, sealed, rest in his satchel as proof of Allied commitment upriver. He strides to the granary site at Giza, where the structure stands half complete, its polished limestone threshold in place, but roof beams yet to be set. Freed laborers and still enslaved workers toil together under the master architect's direction. Bakenkhons greets the foreman, an ex-scribe named Apu, and they review the day's tasks. Hapu points toward the roof. Massive cedar beams must be hoisted next. They calculate manpower, pulley placements, and safety measures. Bakenkhons volunteers a team of 10 freed workers to lead the lift, teaching them the engineer's knots and commands in a quick demonstration. Their confidence soars at his guidance. Mid-morning, he convenes with the canal engineers by the moisture control basin. Water levels have remained stable, but they propose adding a second sluice to regulate humidity more precisely during storage. Bakenkhons listens as they explain dynamic flow principles and the need for seasonal adjustments. He nods, approving the modification and instructing that clay gauges be installed at key points. He jots notes on a clay tablet, ready to dispatch updates to the Nile settlements still under construction. By noon, children from the attached schoolhouse arrive for their midday break. Songs of the hymn to the Nile echoing on the breeze. Bakenkhon steps aside to watch. They practice scribing the symbols for abundance, unity, and knowledge on miniature clay tablets. He offers them praise and gentle corrections, reminding them that each glyph they learn inscribes not only clay but their own futures. Their faces light up with pride. In the afternoon, a caravan laden with building supplies arrives. Beams of acacia wood, bundles of reed mats for roofing, and baskets of lime plaster. Bakenkhons organizes the unloading, directing freed families to sort materials by type and size. He demonstrates efficient stacking methods to prevent warping and damage. Even the youngest children help carry small bundles, thrilled to contribute to their community's growth. As shadows lengthen, a messenger from the Southern Network returns, bearing 2 new seals from remote villages. They pledge to adopt the school, attach granary model, and request training for local artisans to carve the emblem of the Ankh intertwined with barley. Bakenkhons gathers skilled carvers from his village and leads an impromptu workshop at the granary's courtyard. By torchlight, they sketch the emblem's curves on limestone slabs, passing on techniques to smooth the carvings and accentuate depth. The remote village's seals are affixed to petition, expanding the network to 5 settlements. Night falls and lanterns illuminate the granary as beams are set in place. Freed laborers trust each other implicitly now. No overseers shout commands. They chant a rhythmic lifting song to synchronize their pulls on the ropes. The cedar beams slide into position, and cheers erupt as the final beam clicks into the rooftop framework. Bakenkhons lifts his face to the sky, feeling the breeze through the emerging structure. Pride swells in his chest. What was once mere drafts on reed scrolls now stands as stone and wood, a monument to collective freedom. Before retiring, he convenes a meeting of village elders and engineers under the half-built roof. They finalize plans for a dedication ceremony at dawn. Readings of the treaties, offerings of grain and bread, and the first lessons in the new schoolhouse. Each attendee inscribes their name on a clay tablet to be buried beneath the cornerstone, symbolizing their personal oath. Bakenkhons demonstrates the consecration ritual, sprinkling Nile water over the tablets and anointing them with oil. The elders murmur blessings, their confidence in the project unshakable. He walks home under the star-studded sky, the unfinished granary glowing behind him. His satchel is lighter now, the petition scrolls safely stored in the council's archives. He pauses at the canal's edge, listening to the gentle lap of water and the distant hum of night insects. In that quiet, he reflects on how a single freed man's journey, from shackles of pilgrimage to leadership, has rippled across communities, forging bonds stronger than stone. He kneels by the water and removes his mother's ankh talisman, pressing it to his forehead. "May this work endure," he whispers. Rising, he tucks the talisman beneath his tunic and looks toward the horizon, where desert dunes glow silver in the moonlight. "Tomorrow," he murmurs, "we celebrate and teach, and then we set our sights on the next horizon." Dawn's first light washes the new granary in a soft gold as freed laborers, artisans, teachers, and village elders gather before its polished threshold stones. Bakenkhon stands at the center of the assembled crowd, his heart beating with the weight of this moment. Across the courtyard, flax banners bearing the ankh, and barley emblem flutter in the gentle breeze, each symbol a testament to solidarity forged by shared toil and shared vision. The master architect leads a procession of dignitaries. The pharaoh's scribe Marinath, clad in white linen. The high priest of Ammonius, R.A., whose headdress gleams like the morning sun, and envoys from the neighboring settlements, each bearing sealed petitions from upriver. As they approach the entrance, the architect recites the dedication inscription in a measured tone, carving its sound into the air. "Here stand the House of Plenty, built by hands once bound, now united in freedom. May its store never fail, may its lessons endure, and may its spirit kindle hope across the land." At these words, a hush falls. Bakenkhon steps forward and pours a small amphora of Nile water over the threshold stone, the final ritual of purification and consecration. Water gleams on a limestone, darkening it momentarily before the sun reclaims its pale sheen. Then, the high priest invokes Ammonius, Ra's blessing. "Lord of thrones, hidden one, breathe life into this structure. Grant abundance to its chambers and wisdom to all who enter. May the bonds of unity hold stronger than iron, and may the light of knowledge outshine the fiercest flame." Incense coils from censers placed on each corner of the doorway. Villagers bow their heads as smoke rises, carrying prayers and promises overhead. Children clutch clay tablets inscribed with abundance and unity, their eyes bright with wonder at the ceremony's grandeur. Next, Bakenkhons invites the first offerings, baskets of newly harvested grain, jars of olive oil, and amphorae of date honey. He places them on a raised altar beside the doorway. As each vessel is laid down, workers and families step forward to contribute modest portions from their own stores, a gesture that transforms individual sacrifice into collective security. Murmurs of pride ripple through the assembly. With the ritual complete, Bakenkhons beckons the children forward for the inaugural lesson in the attached schoolhouse. They file for the newly carved entrance, its lintel inscribed with the first names of allied villages, and enter a bright, open space where low benches are arranged beneath papyrus. leaf murals. He stands before them and raises his voice. Today, you are not merely students. You are scribes of your own fate. The marks you make on clay and papyrus will carry your stories beyond these walls. May each symbol you learn be a step toward freedom realized and freedom shared. He hands each child a piece of clay and a reed stylus. As they begin to trace the glyphs for life, harvest, and knowledge, the adults watch with tears and smiles, witnessing the cycle of empowerment they have built. A chorus of delighted murmurs fills the room as the first lesson unfurls. By late morning, the celebratory feast begins in the courtyard. Tables are laden with flatbreads, roasted fowl, fresh vegetables, and sweet figs. Musicians play lyres and percussion, and dancers move in rhythm under fluttering banners. Bakenkhons moves among his people, offering bread to former overseers turned partners, and lifting a cup of wine in a silent toast to the Pharaoh's mercy that set him on this path. As the sun arcs to its zenith, a delegation from Memphis arrives bearing gifts, a finely woven tapestry depicting the Nile's life, giving flood, and a carved wooden box of precious inks and brushes for the schoolhouse. Their envoy praises the project's innovation and pledges further support for its expansion to other regions. The villagers cheer, swelling Bakenkhons' pride. At mid-afternoon, Bakenkhons retreats to the threshold of the granary, gazing down its long aisle of storage chambers. Each bay holds the fruits of months of labor and the promise of security for generations to come. He presses his palm to the cool limestone and recalls the day his shackles fell away. Now, he is not defined by bondage, but by the bonds he has woven between communities. As shadows lengthen, he addresses the gathered elders and engineers one final time. This granary and school are but the first stones in a network of hope. Let us carry this model upriver, down to the delta and beyond. Let each village raise its own house of plenty. Each child learn to read the stories that shape their world, and let freedom be our inheritance. The crowd raises their voices in unison. May it be so. The cry echoes against the stone walls, a resounding affirmation of shared purpose. In the waning light, Bakenkhon steps outside the courtyard into the quiet of late afternoon. He lifts his gaze to the horizon, where the wheat fields shimmer and distant villages blink with lantern light. In his satchel rests the ink talisman, the final seal petitions, and a new reed scroll ready for fresh names and fresh dreams. He bows his head in silent gratitude to his mother's memory, to the gods who guided him, and to the countless hands that turned the vision into reality. Then, with steady steps, he walks away from the granary into a future he will continue to build, one symbol, one grain, and one life at a time. As Bakenkhon steps into the glow of the setting sun, his journey from shackles to leadership reminds us that true freedom is built through unity, hope, and action. If you felt this story soothe your mind and spark your imagination, there's so much more ahead. Next, we'll follow Bakenkhons as he ventures to Memphis to forge alliances and spread his network of House of Plenty across the Nile. Subscribe now and click the bell so you don't miss a Memphis Accord. Bakenkhons' next chapter dropping soon. Like if you believe in the power of community, and comment below. Where would you build your own House of Plenty? Until the next video.